When faith collides with fear, one elderly janitor's peaceful ritual ignites a firestorm of misunderstanding. At Meridian Tower, where shadows dance across marble floors, Amjad faces a world that sees his prayers as a threat. Now, as cameras roll and communities divide, an unexpected connection proves that sometimes understanding begins with a simple invitation to observe. Chapter 1. In the gleaming atrium of the Meridian Tower, shadows stretched long across marble floors as evening descended. Amjad Nazari, his weathered hands gripping a mop, glanced anxiously at his watch. The call to Maghrib prayer would begin in minutes, and the nearest mosque was 15 blocks away. 73 years of devotion had never missed a prayer, until today perhaps. Allah will understand, he whispered to himself, though the tightness in his chest disagreed. The building was nearly empty now. Why not find a quiet corner? Amjad carefully set aside his cleaning cart and unfolded a small prayer rug from his backpack, a treasured gift his late wife had embroidered decades ago. He spread it in the corner of the lobby, partially hidden behind a large potted palm. The familiar texture beneath his fingers brought comfort as he removed his shoes. From his position, Ryan Cooper, the night security guard, couldn't see the prayer rug. He only observed an elderly man with an accent suddenly abandoning his duties, reaching into a backpack and kneeling behind a decorative feature. 3 weeks into his first security job, Ryan's mind raced with every training video he'd watched about suspicious behavior. Suspicious activity, northwest corner, Ryan whispered into his radio, heart pounding. Foreign male, appearing to hide something. Send backup. Amjad closed his eyes, shutting out the gleaming corporate world around him. Allahu Akbar, he breathed, raising his hands to his ears. The familiar words transported him from the sterile lobby to a place of peace. The burden of his aching knees and back, the worry about his daughter's upcoming surgery, the memory of the young man who had spat at him on the bus last week, all began to dissolve as he bowed forward. He didn't hear the approaching footsteps or see the security guard's hand hovering near his holster. "Sir, stop what you're doing and show me your hands." Ryan's voice cracked with nervous authority. In Amjad's earpiece, missed calls from his supervisor began to buzz as multiple security personnel converged on the lobby. Outside, the wail of approaching police sirens cut through the evening air, responding to a potential threat in one of the city's most prominent buildings. Amjad, deep in prayer, heard nothing but the whispers of his faith. Chapter 2. Officer Sarah Martinez was first through the glass doors, weapon drawn but pointed down. Backup units were securing the perimeter outside, standard protocol for a potential threat in a high-rise. The dispatcher's words still echoed in her mind. Possible terrorist activity. What she found instead was an elderly man on his knees, eyes closed in prayer, and a young security guard looking increasingly uncertain. "Sir, I need you to stand up slowly," Sarah commanded, her voice firm but controlled. Amjad, completing his rak'ah, finally became aware of the commotion around him. He opened his eyes to find 3 uniformed officers and the security guard forming a half-circle around him. The shock nearly stopped his heart. What is happening?" he asked, his voice small and confused as he struggled to his feet, joints protesting. "Please keep your hands where we can see them," Officer Martinez instructed, holstering her weapon as she assessed the situation. "Can you explain what you're doing here?" Ryan interjected nervously. He was hiding behind this plant, acting suspicious. He abandoned his cleaning cart and took something out of his backpack. "Prayer rug," Amjad explained softly, pointing to the small carpet beneath him. "It is time for Maghrib, sunset prayer. I cannot miss prayer. Please, I clean here for 11 years. Officer Martinez exhaled slowly, the tension visibly leaving her shoulders. She'd seen this before, cultural misunderstandings escalating into unnecessary confrontations. She glanced at Ryan, who now stared at his shoes, his face reddening. "Sir, may I see your ID?" she asked Amjad gently. With trembling hands, he removed his employee badge and a worn wallet from his pocket. As he handed them over, a photo slipped out, a faded picture of a young woman in a graduation cap and gown, beaming next to a younger Amjad. "My daughter," he said with quiet pride. "Doctor at Memorial Hospital." Before Officer Martinez could respond, a man in an expensive suit burst through the stairwell door, breathing heavily. "What the hell is going on here?" demanded Michael Phillips, the building's night manager. I've got tenants calling about police cars with flashing lights. This better be important." He stopped short when he saw Amjad. "Why are you detaining our janitor?" In the background, Amjad's phone began to ring. The caller ID showed Sophia, his daughter. How would he explain this to her? How could he tell her that his prayers had been mistaken for something sinister? Outside, news vans were already pulling up to the curb. Chapter 3. By morning, the incident had metamorphosed from a local misunderstanding into a media phenomenon. Prayer or threat? Elderly Muslim detained while worshipping, screamed one headline. Another read, Security overreaction highlights religious tensions. Cell phone footage from a departing office worker had captured the confrontation, though it began only after the police had arrived. Sophia Nazari stared at her father across the kitchen table in their modest apartment, dark circles under her eyes. Neither had slept much. "Baba, you should file a complaint," she urged, sliding the morning newspaper toward him. "This is discrimination, plain and simple." Amjad shook his head, his fingers tracing the rim of his untouched tea. "No trouble. The young guard, he was just doing his job." "His job isn't to profile you because of your faith," Sophia countered, the surgeon's precision evident in her words. "What if this happens to someone else? What if next time someone gets hurt?" Outside their apartment, Amjad's phone rang continuously with calls from community members, reporters, and even a civil rights attorney offering pro bono representation. The imam from their mosque had called twice already, concerned about the incident and offering support. "I just want to work," Amjad sighed. 11 years, no problems. Now everyone looks at me differently." His supervisor had called that morning, awkwardly suggesting he take a few paid days off until things cool down. The building management was worried about protesters. Across town, Ryan Cooper sat in his studio apartment, staring at his laptop. The online comments beneath the news articles were a battleground, some calling him a racist, others defending his vigilance. He'd been placed on administrative leave pending review. His training had emphasized, see something, say something, but had glossed over the nuances of religious practices and cultural differences. Ryan thought about his grandfather, a veteran who had taught him about duty and responsibility. What would he think of this situation? Meanwhile, at City Hall, community leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. The mayor, facing re-election in 3 months, spoke passionately about religious freedom while carefully avoiding any direct criticism of the police department or the security company. "This incident presents an opportunity for education and growth," she proclaimed to the assembled cameras. "Our diversity is our strength." But in the back of the room, voices whispered about deepening divides and growing suspicions. A proposed interfaith community center had already faced setbacks due to neighborhood opposition. Would this incident further inflame tensions or create space for healing? That afternoon, as Amjad prepared for Asr prayer in his living room, he noticed a figure standing awkwardly at his apartment door through the peephole. It was the security guard, Ryan Cooper, clutching what appeared to be an envelope and looking terrified. Sophia moved to stand between her father and the door. "You don't have to talk to him, Baba." But Amjad was already reaching for the doorknob, his weathered face unreadable. Chapter 4. "I came to apologize," Ryan blurted out before Amjad could speak. His hand shook as he extended the envelope. "And to return this." Inside was Amjad's prayer rug, carefully folded. In the commotion, it had been left behind, tagged as evidence, and then released. "May I come in?" Ryan asked hesitantly. Sophia began to object, but Amjad gently touched her arm. "Yes," he said simply, stepping aside. The apartment was modest but warm, filled with books and family photographs. The aroma of cardamom and cinnamon lingered in the air. Ryan stood awkwardly in the center of the living room, clutching his hat. "I didn't understand what you were doing," Ryan admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I've seen Muslims before, but I didn't recognize the prayer. They showed us videos about suspicious packages, unusual behaviors. Nothing about prayer routines." "Education works both ways," Amjad said, gesturing for Ryan to sit. "Tea?" "I've lost my job," Ryan continued, perching on the edge of the sofa. "But that's not why I'm here. I need you to know that I didn't call the police because of who you are or what you believe. Just fear of what you do not understand," Amjad nodded. "This I know well." Sophia watched the exchange with guarded eyes, but remained silent. My grandfather fought in Desert Storm, Ryan said suddenly. He told me stories about the local people who helped his unit, who shared meals with them even when they had little themselves. He said he never felt closer to God than when he heard the call to prayer echo across the desert at dawn. Ryan's voice cracked. I didn't connect that with what I saw in the lobby. I should have. We are taught that understanding comes through knowledge, Amjad replied, accepting his prayer rug with reverence. Ignorance breeds fear. Fear breeds hatred. This cycle, we must break. A notification on Sophia's phone interrupted the moment. A reminder about the community meeting scheduled that evening to discuss the incident. Will you come? She asked Ryan suddenly. The imam has invited the security company, the police, building tenants, everyone involved. You should be there. Ryan hesitated, fear flashing across his face. I don't think I'd be welcome. More welcome than my father was in that lobby, she replied pointedly. Amjad placed a weathered hand on Ryan's shoulder. When we pray, we face Mecca. But in truth, we face ourselves, our fears, our failures. This is true courage. 3 hours later, the community center buzzed with tense energy as Amjad walked in, Ryan nervously at his side. Cameras turned their way. Voices rose in surprise. The imam stepped forward, greeting them both with the same warm handshake. Salam alaikum, he said to Amjad, then turned to Ryan. Peace be upon you. Peace, Ryan echoed, the word feeling new on his tongue. As they took their seats side by side, Amjad glanced at his watch. Almost time for Isha prayer. He caught Ryan's eye and saw not suspicion, but curiosity. Understanding wouldn't come in a single evening, but perhaps it could begin with a simple explanation. Would you like to observe? Amjad asked quietly. Ryan nodded, his eyes reflecting a mixture of apprehension and hope. I would. In the corner of the community center, Amjad unfolded his prayer rug once more. This time, when he knelt, Ryan sat nearby, watching not with fear, but with the humility of someone beginning to learn a new language, the language of respect. Outside, the city continued its restless pace. But within these walls, a small corner of understanding had been carved from the stone of misunderstanding. Wow, what a story! And there is more coming. Don't forget to subscribe to not miss a new stories.